If he is not here, we cannot start.
Correct. Yeah, still got something.
Good, should I eat my grapes? Restfully.
That's dinner.
Eat away. What was that?
Motorcycle.
It just vibrated really loudly like thunders.
Yes.
5 minutes to spare. Fine. Cool. We're good.
Yes. It'll be back.
What happened?
It'll be back.
Just too hot?
A little bit.
Yeah. I was like, wait, who's that? Oh, wait a minute. Who's that dude?
It's the same thing that happened to me. Yeah. I saw him the other day and I was like, what?
Who is that? Who is that
All right, it is 6:30. I will call this meeting to order. Please rise if possible, if not. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So before we get started, our agenda is being swapped around a little bit. So if you are here to make a comment, just a general comment or interested in making comment, for instance, the urban growth renewal thing. Elaine, our specialist, is going to be here putting on that presentation. So you can either wait through that and then open up, or if you would like to make your comment prior to us opening that public hearing, then we will do that. So I don't know how many of you are here for the urban. Okay. So it sounds like most everybody's here for that. Okay. So, because we do have some other individuals who may not have seen the presentation, I'm going to just have general comments in the beginning. And then we'll open up the public hearing and Elaine will put on her presentation. And during that hearing, we will have interested parties make their say, so it'll be on the record. All right, is that okay with all the counselors? Excellent.
Is it actually a public hearing?
Yes.
Yeah. But is that part of the city council meeting or part of the urban renewal agency? Because we don't have a hearing listed on today's agenda.
They didn't list it like that, but that's what it is because Elaine's presentation has to go into the public hearing. So we're actually gonna have.
Okay, I was just, yeah.
Sorry, that's why there's some swapping around. All right, so has anybody signed up for general comment?
I believe so.
Okay. So I will go ahead and have the first person, so it looks like it's Wendy. Okay. Please, and state your name and address for the record.
Yes, my name is Wendy Stuck. I live at 705 Rodeo Drive here in Dayton. I've enjoyed living in Dayton now for 3 years. I moved here in the summer of 21. And the following year, I became a volunteer for the DCDA, and I've been helping them with the Friday night music event and some other events that they put on, as well as going to some conferences and getting motivated to bring some fun things to Dayton if possible. I was able to meet Dave at one of the conferences a couple of years ago in Klamath Falls. He did a great presentation regarding farmers markets, and I came back to the DCDA hoping that we could get a rally going, but things happen and we haven't been able to do that. So I know Dave has, looked into that. So I'm hoping that that'll be something that we can, make some progress on. But as a citizen, I wanted to come and I just haven't done it, but I saw the agenda and was curious about the funds that might be available to improve recreation and some of the facades in town. So I wanted to come just to see what you guys were going to be talking about. But one of the things that I would really love to be a part of, and I think tonight's the night to bring it up, is I would love to be on a committee or be a part of a group that could possibly get a couple of bocce ball courts in town And I would love to, if I can, spearhead fundraising and work on that. So depending on what you plan to do in the recreation improvement, I really think a couple of bocce ball courts in our community at one of our parks would be a nice asset. My daughter plays bocce ball for Special Olympics. She's 28 on the autism spectrum, and she's played bocce ball for about 7 years. I've played with her. We're a unified team, so we've enjoyed it as a family, and it's a really fun activity. I know a lot of the wineries have bocce ball courts, so I would just like to be added to, if there's interest in doing anything like that, I would definitely offer my services. I volunteer quite a bit in town. I'm also on the fireworks committee. So I do love to be a part of making good things happen, and I love Dayton. So I just wanted to put that out there for when you guys start moving forward with these funds.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right, that is all I have for the public comment, so we will go ahead and close that at 6:35. And we will open up the official hearing, and we'll introduce Elaine Howard, who's our specialist.
Okay. Elaine's gonna have me give a forward to her presentation. And
Perfect.
I apologize to the fire district board because they listened to me speak last Monday, and probably listening to me again tonight is gonna seem very repetitious. So I will try to do a more streamlined version of it this evening. As I said the other evening, there was something developed in 2012 called the Dayton Forward Plan. The Dayton Forward Plan is something that was adopted by the city council, supported by the city council. It kind of gave us an idea. It was a kind of a blueprint for the future of Dayton. Since that time, that plan continues to be a very relevant document. It really does spell out things that we as a community have been trying to strive to do. And there are a lot of things on that remain needing to be done. When I came here, as I mentioned before, one of the things I saw was the debacle, I call it, in McMinnville regarding the Gwendolyn Hotel and how they approached that, because they went ahead and brought that to the community before asking the community what they thought about it, and it kind of blew back in their face. So I did an economic redevelopment questionnaire here in the community, and we sent that out to everybody in their utility bills. We received a fairly significant response, worthy of being able to consider the questionnaire being very valid. And one of the things that came back of that is that the citizenry here, in a majority opinion, if not overwhelming, said, we want you to get something done. We want you to move this town forward. We want to have amenities. We want to have things that we feel the city should have. And so we took that response and quantified it. And it's kind of been used as a blueprint this last year of starting to make some different changes or implement some new policies or do some new projects that they were interested in. One of the things that's come to a head now is, and after being here a year and working with my fine public works department, I've come to realize what an infrastructural challenge we have in this city. If there isn't a day that goes by without a water leak or a sewer issue or whatever it may be, it pretty much, it's certainly a weekly occasion and oftentimes daily. That's been of certain concern, and it becomes an even bigger concern when you think about the potential development that this community has on the horizon. Not only in the central business district, but in the urban growth boundary as well. All these things are going to require an increase in infrastructure for the city, and that's going to mean an expansion in sewer capability, an expansion in water capability, a replacement of pipes and so forth underground. We have a huge long list of quite expensive projects ahead of us to accommodate what we see coming on the horizon. As I mentioned again last Monday, the funding tools for Oregon cities are so limited. We get that tax increase of 3% each year. Dayton has the lowest tax rate in the county and one of the lowest in the state. So unfortunately, when the measures were passed in the 1990s, we got held to a certain number that was far lower than most others. We have no gas tax because we have no gas station. We have no cannabis tax because we have no dispensary outlets. And we have no extra tax to support other needs that we might be able to address. Our TLT income, which is derived from lodging, which is at this point almost 100% tied to the vintages, is used dedicated for tourism marketing as dictated by the state. So 70% of that money that comes from that has to be used in marketing your city to a populace 50 miles or greater away. The city recovers the other 30%. At this point in time, our TLT income is very small because we don't have a lot of lodging opportunities. Some have mentioned, well, maybe this is a great time to look at bonds and levies, but there's little appetite for increase in taxes as illustrated by the failure of the law enforcement levy in recent years. So if I look at it this way, if that's a difficult struggle, it's going to be very difficult to look at trying to pay for things that might bring about expansion to the city's infrastructure for growth and so forth. So we have very limited ways in which raising funds to address all of this. And urban renewal was one of those ways that the state has given us the opportunity to use. Urban renewal was created by the state of Oregon in 1957 as that kind of tool that has been used by 88 cities in the state of Oregon. And all contrary to some who have made the claim that it does not return on its investment, I beg to differ if 88 cities are still pursuing it and creating multiple districts within their own. Obviously, it has a negative side to it, not in tax increase, but in tax deferral or tax adjustment. Our taxing districts, which include the schools and the fire district, the soil conservation district and others, all end up with a specific impact. The most severe being to say the fire district because the schools are basically funded by the state. In other words, if there's a reduction in funding there, the state comes in and makes up for it. That's not necessarily the case for the fire district. And I know that's why our fire district board is here tonight, is to basically address some of those concerns. But I'm going to let Elaine move forward with the presentation of which you guys have seen before, the public necessarily hasn't, that talks about what urban renewal is on a 101 basis. Again, my apologies to the fire district board because you've been through this, but it's good to give us all a refresher so we all know what it's about. Elaine?
Thank you. And I'll apologize to the fire district board too, because a lot of what we're going through is the same thing we went through the other night. But since this is a public hearing that's been advertised through your utility bills to all utility customers, we need to go through everything so that everybody has a basic understanding of what urban renewal is. So this is the next to final step in looking at the urban renewal plan, and this is city council hearing on the potential adoption of an ordinance, a non-emergency ordinance, to create an urban renewal area. So we will talk about the role of the city council, do a crash course, urban renewal 101, talk about the process, review what the plan and report are, talk about a financial overview and what the next steps are. The role of the city council tonight is to hold a hearing, and I don't think we can conduct the first reading of ordinance because it wasn't posted. So the conducting of the first reading of the ordinance will be at the next city council meeting. You will take public testimony, consider that taxing public testimony and any taxing district input, and move to the next meeting where you'll do the first reading of the ordinance. So urban renewal basics. Urban renewal itself is not a new tax. So although when people get a property tax bill, it has urban renewal on that property tax bill, if you have urban renewal in your community, it is not an additional or new tax. Sometimes taxing districts will say, well, it might create the need for a new tax, but we just tried to be clear that urban renewal itself is not creating a new tax. Urban renewal, as used now in Oregon, is basically an economic development tool. It's unique that it has financing that goes in association with an adopted plan. Why that is important is Dave was talking about the Dayton Forward Plan that was adopted in 2012. That was an innovative forward-looking plan, but it had no funding attached to it. So it had ideas about projects, ways to improve the community, but no funding to be able to do any of those projects. What urban renewal does is provide funding to be able to accomplish projects within your community. That funding is based on increases in assessed value within the urban renewal area. Urban renewal is used all over Oregon, as Dave said, and there's a map on the next slide that shows urban renewal in Oregon. Unfortunately, these screens are relatively small, but you can see up and down the I-5 corridor, up and down 101, across southern Oregon, even out I-84. Urban renewal is prevalent in most of your larger cities. In Yamhill County itself, next slide, let's see if I have that on here. Yes, McMinnville has an urban renewal area, Carlton, Dundee, Newburgh, and Lafayette. Lafayette's area is brand new. They haven't received their first increment yet, so you won't have seen anything happening there, but in those other, and Newburgh's is new also. We'll get funding and start being able to do things next year. Next slide. So why do cities decide to use urban renewal? A lot of that decision is based just on what Dave said, which is you have projects that you want to accomplish, you have infrastructure needs, and you don't have any funding to be able to accomplish those. To be able to move ahead, you need to identify a funding source, and urban renewal is a statutorily allowed funding source for cities in Oregon. Next slide. So an urban renewal area functions on an income source. That income source is annual tax increment revenues based on increased assessed value within an urban renewal area. We'll have another slide or two that talks about how that happens. It has expenses, so every year it does have a budget that you have to develop, similar to adopting and developing the city budget. And it has a spending limit. That spending limit is called maximum indebtedness. Maximum indebtedness is the controlling feature of urban renewal in Oregon urban renewal plans. And that is established within the urban renewal plan when it's adopted, and it's over a projected time frame. That time frame is not time specific, not required to be in the statute in Oregon. But we use a time frame to be able to project what that maximum indebtedness might be. Next slide. This shows a concept of how urban renewal works, and it shows a frozen base assessed value across the bottom. That is the assessed value of an urban renewal area at the time it's adopted, if adopted. The assessor certifies that frozen base, and all the taxing districts continue getting their taxes off of that frozen base assessed value. That increment shown in the blue is increased taxes off of assessed value as it grows within the urban renewal area. That increment is typically just based off the 3% limitation of assessed value growth, unless you have new construction within your community or major rehabilitation like the project that is ongoing just a couple of blocks down. At the end of urban renewal, the time frame of actually doing projects, if the urban renewal agency takes out long-term loans, the agency has to continue collecting that tax increment to pay off those long-term loans. Once they have paid off those loans, the maximum indebtedness has been reached, then the area is terminated and all the taxing districts will receive the benefit of any increased assessed value within that area and be able to add that to their budgets in the year after urban renewal ends. There are limitations on urban renewal in Oregon. If you have a city with a population of under 50,000, you're limited to 25% of your acreage being in an urban renewal area and 25% of your assessed value. If you have an existing plan, you may not increase the boundary, the acreage, by more than 20% of the original acreage in the plan. In this particular area, you have just under 25% in your boundary. So you can't use that 20% addition because you'll be limited by the 25% of total acreage. Another limitation on an existing plan is if at some point in the future you decide to increase that spending limit or the maximum indebtedness, that has to be what's called a substantial amendment to your plan. It goes through the same process as the adoption of an original plan. So all taxing districts have to get notified. Has to go through the same agency, planning commission, city council process. The city council may, after going through all that process, increase the maximum indebtedness by up to 20% of the original maximum indebtedness as adjusted for inflation. Any increase over that amount has to be approved by 75% of the taxing districts who levy taxes within the area based on what the rates are. Next one. In 2019, there was legislation that dealt with public buildings in urban renewal areas. It specified what a definition of a public building is. And it said that if you put a public building within an urban renewal plan, you have to get concurrence of taxing districts. And that concurrence is a little different. It's not the 75%. It's 3 of the top 4 taxing districts. Those taxing districts are the city of Dayton, the Dayton Fire District, the Dayton School District, and Yamhill County. We had put in the plan for consideration of those public building projects, a project for the Dayton School District and a project for the Dayton Fire District. The Dayton School District project is a recreation project, and I believe that's specifically exempted as a public building project, so you don't have to go through that process. We bundled the 2 of those together because they are both for taxing districts, and we thought it makes sense to have people understand that the city wanted to work with both of those important taxing districts as they were moving forward. We were, at this point, we have been unable to get 3 of the 4 taxing districts to approve that public building project. So at this point, we may not include the project for the fire district, but I believe you still can approve the project for the school district as it is exempted from that public building requirement. Next. The adoption process for an urban renewal plan is to have review by an urban renewal agency. When we started this process, you created an urban renewal agency. We had that agency meeting, and the agency did review that and sent it out for the formal public review process, which included sending it to all of the taxing districts for a required 45-day consult and confer period. And then we're required to give a presentation to the county, which we have done. It needs to go to the planning commission. The task we asked the planning commission to undertake is reviewing the urban renewal plan for conformance to the comprehensive plan. The planning commission voted unanimously that the urban renewal plan did conform to the comprehensive plan. And then the city council has this public hearing, which was noticed to all utility customers. And after this hearing, the city council will consider a non-emergency ordinance, which has to be read in 2 separate meetings. So it would be read in the August meeting and then the September meeting. If approved, it would not be in effect for 30 days after approval of the ordinance. We also, because of the public building process, we sent a separate notification to the taxing districts, just the 4 that had to approve the public building project. We sent that separately because we wanted to make sure they understood that that was a separate notification. So for the fire district, school district, city council, and county, we sent a separate notice about the public building process. The public building process is also a little odd in that it says if any of those taxing districts don't get back to you within 45 days, the city council can deem that they've approved that project. So it does require an affirmative response from the taxing district saying if they don't want it included, that they do not want it included. And I think we'll hit this later, but we have both the fire district and the school district have asked for extra time to consider that. And the city has allowed them both extra time for that consideration. So this just reiterates what we've talked about about how urban renewal works. So at the time an urban renewal area is formed, the property tax revenue from that area will go to all of the taxing jurisdictions. That's on that frozen base. In Oregon, our property taxes increased for two reasons. The 3% limitation that was approved on measures 47, 50, and 5, and then any new construction or rehabilitation. When you form an urban renewal area in a city, only the properties within that area, that frozen base assessed value is established, and the taxing districts continue receiving their taxes off of that. And then only in that area, any increases off of that frozen base, the tax off of that go to the urban renewal agency. This is the boundary of the urban renewal area. You can see it is mostly it's small. Dayton's a small city, so although this is small, it is just under 25% of your total acreage. A good part of your boundary is used in right-of-way because of the infrastructure projects to be undertaken. So you have your downtown core area. You have, I believe is it the water treatment plant to the far west. You have a little park that's off of that little flag lot at the far west. You have the school property where a recreation facility could be put in. You have the different roads there. You have the downtown core, and then you have park areas off to the right, and then that upper area on the far right is some vacant industrial land and park areas. Dave, do you want to add anything to the boundary?
Yeah, just your sewer ponds are in part of that process on the other side of the anthill there. So they've been included for that specific person. Also Dayton Landing, which is located right there on the riverfront, is another area that's been put in hopes that someday the city gains control of that property and is able to do something with it.
So all of your major recreation facilities are included within the area. So your Dayton Landing, the Legion Field, the Courthouse Square, and the 11th Street Park. And that is to allow you to be able to do capital expenditures within those areas. We have not included the fire district property. If indeed we get figured out some kind of an agreement with 3 of the 4 taxing districts and the fire district agrees, this would be, the boundary would be amended and we would add in the fire district along with keeping that project in. So that will depend on when we get to final review and adoption. Number 1, whether you vote for adoption. Number 2, whether the fire district project is included.
Sorry, quick question. Does adding in the fire district keeps underneath the 25%?
It does. It's going to be close, and if we have to do anything, what we'll do is we'll carve out a little bit out of the pond area or out of something else to be able to get us under the 25%. Yeah. These are the acreage and assessed value limitations. You can see on the acreage, we are at 24.25%, so we have very little acreage to add in. For assessed value, we're at only 6.83% of the total assessed value of the city. So although there are impacts to the city's own budget and to the fire district and other entities, it certainly isn't up to that 25% that you can have. It is at that 7%, just under 7%. The goals of the urban renewal plan are in conformance with the goals that the city council have adopted. to develop and maintain resilient infrastructure to support operations and meet growth, to create a livable community that is aesthetically pleasing, affordable, and inviting, and with a vibrant and diverse economy, to capitalize on Dayton's facilities and resources to provide recreational and cultural opportunities, to use Dayton's heritage and historic resources to forward our image as an authentic and charming town. The projects are within these main categories: recreation improvements, downtown streetscape, building facade grant program, taxing district partnerships, those are the projects with the fire district and school district, infrastructure, streets and utilities, and development and redevelopment, and then administration and staffing. We talked about maximum indebtedness as being the controlling feature of an urban renewal plan. The projected maximum indebtedness of this plan would be $29,400,000. This is estimated to be reached in 25 years. This is an aggressive assumption based on development happening around Courthouse Square. You have a developer working now on one project with a hotel in the offing. That same developer has purchased a number of other properties and intends to move forward if those projects are successful. We have spoken to that developer and used their projections on potential timing for the projections of the maximum indebtedness. But we all know that a great recession or other things can happen. So that is an estimate. You do not get access to that full 29.4 million at the time an urban renewal plan is adopted. You're able to spend money as it comes in based on whatever is that 3% growth or any new construction that happens after an urban renewal area is adopted. Based on the project that is underway right now, you could have the capacity to borrow over $1 million in the initial fiscal year, 2025-2026. If that construction ends up being not completed by January 1st, that will get pushed out a year because that estimate of the ability to borrow is based on that project being completed by then. More substantial funding would be available potentially in fiscal year in 2031. And again, that's depending on investment, but that is anticipating that the hotel project would move ahead and get on the tax rolls by that time. To amend an urban renewal plan, there are two levels of amendments that are called substantial amendments. Those amendments have to go through that whole process that I identified a couple of slides back. That is increasing your acreage over 1% of your original acreage and any increase in your maximum indebtedness. A minor amendment is really any other change to your plan. So as you're identifying those specific infrastructure projects or as you're identifying specific activities at any of the parks, you could memorialize those through a resolution by the agency as a minor amendment to the projects within your plan. So that just allows people to more easily track what you're doing, and it just requires the action by the agency. The report on the plan is an entirely separate document. If the city council decides to adopt the plan, it is the plan that they adopt. The report is a technical appendix to the plan, and it reviews the existing conditions within the area as required by the statute. So the statute lists a long number of issues that have to be addressed in the report, and it provides that financial analysis so that anybody in 5 years or 10 years who is trying to implement the plan can look back and say, well, how did they think we were going to have this amount of money at this time? And be able to look at the document and see what those projections are. You have to be able to say in the ordinance adopting the plan that the plan is feasible, and that has to be based on a financial analysis. This financial analysis allows you to make that finding that the plan as presented is feasible. These are the projections for the capacity of funding over time. The net TIF is the amount of money that we would anticipate you would have to take through that division of taxes from all the different taxing districts, including the city itself, to be able to finance that maximum indebtedness amount of $29,400,000. That amount is higher because it anticipates if you take out loans, that you have to take interest on those loans. And that interest on the loans is exempted from calculation of your maximum indebtedness by statute. The capacity in 2024 dollars just means that maximum indebtedness of $29.4 million is calculated over a 25-year time frame. If you take that money and say, what can I buy with that now? Because inflation will impact that over time. You can buy $20.5 million worth of projects now. So that is what allowed us to take our projects and split them up into potential funding for projects. The anticipated amount of money that you would receive in 5-year increments is then shown below that, showing that in years 6 through 10, you have the highest amount of capacity, and that again anticipates development happening within the urban renewal area that gives you that capacity. This is the potential funding for projects based on that discounting the money back to today's dollars and what you could buy out of today's dollars. These are for the purposes of review in the report accompanying the plan. As the agency implements the plan in the future, these numbers can be changed. You still can't spend more money. Your maximum indebtedness remains the same. But if you happen to get a large grant that covers some of your recreation improvements and you wanted to allocate that money to something else, you are able to do that. So these are the thoughts at this point in time in terms of working with the city on what those projects might cost, but these are not set in stone. You may adjust those through your annual budgeting process. I'm sorry that this is so small, but this shows the impacts on the different taxing districts over that 25-year period. This includes both that 3% amount that within your area, you have not seen new construction or growth on a large scale that increases you above that 3%. So 3% is what your taxing jurisdictions would generally see if there wasn't expected new growth within the area. So this is both that 3%, but it is also looking at potential new growth on a number of properties within the downtown area. And you can see on the bottom there, and I'll read those off for people who unfortunately won't be able to read that, but for Yamhill County, it's about $8 million. County Extension, $139,000. Yamhill County and Soil and Water, $109,000, about $110,000. City of Dayton, $5.3 million. Dayton Fire Department, $3.8 million. Chemeketa Library, $254,000. Next slide. Schools are a little different. So we can talk about the totals on these, but then we'll talk a little bit about why schools are different. So Dayton School District, a little under 16 million. The Education Service District, 900,000. Community College, 1.9 million. Next slide. And again, that is anticipating new development that probably won't happen unless that public infrastructure is put in to allow it to happen. So a couple of projects would happen, but after that, that infrastructure needs to be in place for that new development to happen. If you can't fund the infrastructure, that development isn't going to happen. So urban renewal in schools in Oregon, due to our state school fund, urban renewal has an indirect impact on our school districts. For local taxing districts like the Yamhill County Soil and Water, Yamhill County, the city, the fire district, urban renewal has a direct impact because it impacts those monies that might otherwise go to those taxing districts. Next. For schools, their funding is much more complicated. There's the state school fund. The state school fund receives funding through a number of different sources. The permanent rate property taxes is one of those sources that funds the state school fund. The state school fund allocates monies to the school districts based on a per pupil basis. That per pupil basis does not go down if you have urban renewal in your community. It doesn't go down if there's urban renewal in Portland or McMinnville or any other community. That amount is set at the legislature with input from the state school fund, Department of Education on the total amount of money and their total resources. Whether or not more money would be allocated to those schools if urban renewal didn't exist, we don't know the answer to. That's a political question. And we can make an assumption, but we know what it is now. And what it is now is that it is backfilled at the legislative level to make that per pupil funding work. That's for the regular school district and the education service district. Community colleges are similar. They're funded on a state level, but they're funded on number of classes taken. But it is also equalized at the state level. So the next steps that we have here are to hold the hearing, and we won't have the city council vote on August 5th. The first reading of the ordinance will occur that night, and then in the first city council meeting in September, we will have city council vote. That at least is what we're outlined for. And those two lovely children are my grandchildren at park in Wilsonville that was funded through urban renewal. So that is my presentation, and after public testimony, if you want to ask me any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
I would like to open the public testimony, and I believe it was the fire district first. Yes, sir.
Well, this isn't gonna be near as professional as or Dave, but thanks for letting us be here. We want to explain just a little bit about how we think this is gonna affect the fire district and our
Can
building.
you state your name and address for the?
I'm sorry, yes, my name is Ross Sen, I'm with the Dayton Fire District, my address is 608 4th Street. So, I'm gonna start with kind of where we're at, where we've been, and where we'd like to see us go. And I won't take too much time at it. I'm gonna actually ask the fire chief to take a little bit of a part too. The important thing is to understand how it affects Dayton Fire District and how the funding is gonna work. Fire district has 2 administrative employees. The rest of us are volunteers. Medical responders, firefighters, all of them are volunteers. 79 square miles of the 80 square miles we're responsible for are tax deferred agricultural properties. 1 acre is the city where the bulk of our funding comes from. In 2017, we recognized that we had to make some changes to our infrastructure. As we're going forward, we started setting money aside. We did a number of things. We also needed to complete a 2-story addition onto the fire department to house a dormitory for people outside the district to start with, and then for full-time firefighters in the future. And then second or third, however you want to call it, we're building a substation in Hopewell. The current Hopewell substation is nothing more than a metal like garage. We have to, in order to get the fire engine out, we have to pull another piece of apparatus out to get it out. To get it back in, we have to do the same thing in reverse. So we need something there. That's where a lot of our commitment is going, or as far as building goes this year. We initiated a plan for the equipment and infrastructure. Another thing was radios. The radios that we're currently using are way outdated. We had to replace all of them. So in April of 2019, we purchased a new fire engine, just short of $500,000. Believe it or not, it would be probably $750,000 now. In October of 21 and June of 22 and 23, we bought new Motorola multi-band radios. $127,000 and some change. And I think every time you add the fire district to something, the price goes up about 50%. So in May of 2022, we purchased property in Hopewell. That was $188,000 and hoping to build a butcher substation. Current budget is $186,000 to finish the construction upstairs at the fire station. It would have been half of that 15 years ago. We built the station, but it was unneeded at the time. We currently budgeted $273,000 for Hopewell substation. For the property there, we've got architects working on the zone change and the land use on it right now. Hopefully, we're going to be able to start construction soon on that. That is probably going to increase to somewhere around $700,000 by the time we complete it. None of these things are available to us through what we've been talking about here in this presentation so far. So as we complete the infrastructure part of the plan, the need shifts to funding for personnel. And funding for personnel and the increased number of calls is not something that meets the needs for the urban renewal funding either. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Now, Brett. Prepare here.
If you could state your name for the, an address for the record.
So Brett Putman, Dayton Fire Chief, 14575 Southeast Foster Road. So where are we at here? Right there. So I just got back today, so I'm a little behind. So early last year with the projects that went down, we met with an engineer, figured out what we can do, save the project $500,000 to help with PGE lines. Got a Mac over here with their ladder truck, shows the spot we can do. So we have agreement with Walton Valley and McMinnville for a ladder truck. In the buildings down there, it's just, how do you put that? It's going to take an increase of personnel. It's going to take a increase in equipment. Our personnel, a first line firefighter in the union with roll up is $130,000 a piece each. They say after about 400 or 500 calls, we should have full-time people. Last year we ran over 900 calls, and to do a full shift, 24-hour, 7 days a week, it'd take $1.3 million a year. And to not gain this tax money with all the extra work and the extra personnel and extra calls be devastating to us. And we've built the building and purchased our engines with zero additional cost to taxpayers. We haven't went out for a dime, and I would like to, we're pretty proud of that. I would like to work with the city and maybe come up with a different plan and to not lose out on that. You'd give us $1 million, we'd lose 2.8 in funding. I mean, it's just, that's impossible for us. I mean, if we had other income, I mean, the city's gonna get their money, so they don't have to spend the money on those projects. So I've talked to a couple of you. Hopefully we can come up with a plan.
Anyway, I think as the fire district, we agree that it's not a bad idea to have this plan to put in place. We're just really concerned about the funding sources. And what we'd like to suggest is that we put a committee together, a couple of people from the city council or Dave, maybe, and a couple of people from the fire district, and we sit down and kind of hammer out some things that maybe there's some negotiating points that we can make it palatable for all of us to get what you want and still maintain the service that we need to provide, which is going to be really difficult. if that's agreeable to you people, I can touch base with you again and we'll set something up.
Definitely, we would like to have you part of the conversation,
Okay.
as opposed to not, so, I mean, if there's some way that we can work a deal.
I'm sure there's something we can come to that's a little more palatable for us and works for you.
Absolutely.
That's what's important for both of us. Thank
Appreciate
you for
it.
your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Question?
Yes, sir.
So what part of the fire district budget comes from within the city limits of Dayton?
That's a question for Brad.
I don't have that broke down.
Well, I guess what I'm hearing is it's not gonna work for you, but you don't have numbers on how this is gonna affect you.
So just the one building downtown that we were talking about, that alone, we were talking about a year and a half ago, and we didn't figure out something for them to do the electrical wires. They were not gonna do that at all, so they weren't even gonna do that construction because it was gonna be too costly for them to have to put $500,000 to put electrical wires up there. We worked with them, and so working at that, we looked at, I said, now after we're shifting from that was gonna increase us about $75,000 per year with just that building getting accomplished for us to be able to use those taxes, and then we'd be able to use those taxes for personnel. And it was estimated 75 plus. On your guys' thing, it says 86,000 a year, and that way we can hire somebody else for it. Currently, we have me and Chief who works here today, and everybody else is volunteers, and we have some amazing volunteers.
No, and I get all that. I guess what I'm saying is that in high tech, we used to have a phrase, show me the data. So I think this committee is probably gonna be a good idea to sit down and put some numbers on this, because it's like,
And we do have the numbers available. We could just need to look them up. And when we meet with some of the people from the council here,
Yeah.
we can certainly have those numbers.
because I mean, I'd like to be a part of that if I could, but I mean, I'd really like to understand, how your funding is divided up between us, Hopewell, I understand that a lot of it is, farmland and everything, but there are other communities within your fire district, so I want to understand, I want to be able to look and see that data and see that breakdown, so
Sure.
we can understand what your concerns are, on paper.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I can tell you now, most of the concerns are right here at Dayton, but we'll give you
No,
numbers.
And I understand that, but it's like, I'd rather work with data rather than just, this is gonna hurt us versus being able to see a spreadsheet is
We hear you.
make my job, and I think the job of the rest of the council much too.
We hear you. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions of the fire district? All right, we're gonna move on to the next person signed up, and that would be Steve. I can't say your last name, I'm sorry, I can't read it.
Did I sign it?
Yeah,
I read a little letter in. I wasn't gonna speak, because they pretty much covered what I was gonna say. Steve Quimby on Dayton Fire Board since early 2000s. Anyway, basically, you guys are in charge of our budget now. That's my point I'm trying to make. If this procedure goes through, it'll affect our budget. It'll affect our personnel that we want to put in place. Our whole goal was to get the facilities in place, get the infrastructure in. And then we knew it was gonna have to have personnel, because I thought we had 700 calls a year. That's more than that, 900. But that's where we need the money right now, I think. Because once we get the stuff in place, then occasionally a fire truck, but mostly it's personnel. We're asking our volunteers to do a tremendous amount of work for nothing. So that's all I had.
all right, thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
I'm gonna ask a question.
Yes.
So does the Dayton Fire District have a breakout of by the end of our 25-year period, of which the urban renewal district would close? Do you have what that total expense figures you need is by then? So addition of personnel, addition of facilities, and addition of property?
A lot of that would depend on call volume and wages.
Sure.
We don't, an engine, by the time we get another one, will be 700,000-800,000. And an engine at that cost comes with no equipment, comes with ladders, lights on the side, nothing else. The radios, nothing else. And 2 of our tenders are 1986s.
can't have an engine dedicated just to the city. So it has to be full each square miles that we do.
The reason I pose the question is just to know what volume of dollars are we looking at? While the sheet shows based off of hypotheticals, development and all that number, that shows 3.8 million of what you would technically lose. I have no idea if that's all of what you need, not enough of what you need, or is there some flex room there?
There's never all of it.
Well, that's why we are doing it.
I mean, to have a full-time fire department at, 1.3 million a year, I mean, we just can't do that.
Right.
Additional cost to taxpayers.
Maybe when we have, when we set up this discussion amongst, if we can have it broken down, I understand the personnel is gonna be one that's gonna fluctuate, right? Because that's gonna be due to number of calls. But if you had, I'm gonna call it capital improvements, so property, capital expenditures, your fire equipment and trucks, if we could have that outlined, that might help us know, like, these are hard numbers, not going to move. And then what other numbers can fluctuate and what is that point going to fluctuate at by what?
We can
call?
come up with those numbers.
Yeah. Perfect, thank you.
And some of them may be guesstimates, but.
We're working on guesstimates right now.
Just to kind of give you an idea, our tax rate is $90.23 per thousand.
Okay.
Whatever your guys' is inside the city, you guys are $1.70 or $1.79. So ours is less than what yours is for that same percentage. And our overall budget is anywhere between 600,000 and 700,000 a year, plus or minus, depends on what kind of grants we put in for, or what kind of other expenditures we're planning on. So, we're basically living on less than $750,000 a year.
So as a follow-up question to that, if your $1.23, you said, per 1,000 square foot, if you build a 3,000 square foot home, that's gonna be roughly $3.66 per year.
For,
No, it's 1,000 of assessed value.
Oh, 1,000 assessed value. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, that makes more sense. Okay, anyway, do you feel that $1.23 per 1,000 assessed value covers the cost?
Of adding a resident?
Yes. Adding a home?
Well, on a new one, it would, but the problem is all the existing houses aren't
Right.
$400,000 homes, they're $150,000 homes.
Right.
It's like the same problem you guys have.
The reason I pose that question is because if we add in a new home within the urban renewal district, we can't add homes as far as I'm aware, but there's a flux of like, hey, there's something going on in Dayton. More outside investment money will come in and bring in developments, which then could bring in more funding that way. Though that's sources we can't quantify in any way, shape, or form. But I'm just wondering if that $1.23 rate is enough to cover its base. And if so, that checks the box, gave thumbs up. If not, we have more questions, more problems to solve.
So, for example, those 18 new homes across the street up by the high school, that's 18 new homes, that is added several calls, but it got us $4,500, $5,000 for the year based upon the amount. So, I mean, it is extra money, but it's not substantial money based on houses.
Right.
So where we get our real money is by commercial property, and that's where our concern is because when we were helping, figure out the down here, we started looking into it and said, well, just this first project that they're working at, that's gonna be $75,000 plus. If once that gets finished, because that's new construction, so it gets evaluated, it's gonna get evaluated at a high dollar value. So then Chief was like, we can start using these funds, because we need to switch to personnel. Now we're gonna have some serious commercial property that we haven't had here in Dayton for a while. So we were excited, and then also in that, they're like, we're gonna start doing this motel property, catty corner from the park also. And that's gonna be this big project that's gonna be done, 2 to 3 years later. And so that would also be a large commercial property. Commercial property is valued a lot higher than a residential house. And with that commercial property, with that income, with it brings substantial tax amounts. And so we were looking at that as substantial, being able to hire personnel for the fire district. Now we have the urban renewal plan, and we're like, oh no, fire department doesn't get that. We want to take that over here. So that our whole planning phase of trying to hire additional personnel off of that funding and communicating with that builder now has kind of just been taken away from us. And that's why we're saying now our personnel budget that we were looking forward to receiving is no longer up to us, it's up to you.
And we're not gonna solve it
No.
here, but I think part of the challenge, like, what I would invite you guys to think about is that all this commercial development is happening because the city council, the city went to the landowner who owns all those properties and said, respectfully, having these empty properties is doing nothing for the city. Please either develop them or sell them to someone who will. And we're not gonna get those properties wouldn't be coming in here without the investment that the city council has already done in infrastructure. And it's kind of like a push and pull you, right? It's like that building's going in because the city has been able to invest in infrastructure. But we have the lowest tax rate in Yamhill County. So we want more of those empty properties to be developable. We need to be able to invest in our infrastructure. And I think there's a bigger conversation about also the city of Dayton. I don't want to get into it now, but I mean, let's talk about this at that committee.
Yes, please.
About the city of Dayton, you know, the residents of the city of Dayton, what we want to do here, having to basically fund that other 87 square miles or whatever it is. I mean, because our responsibility is to the citizens within the city limits of Dayton. Now, we want to work with you and help you and everything, because we realize that the district is part of that, but it's bigger than us. But we also want to look, and that's why we need data to see, understand where those monies are going. And how it, you know, if you're taking an extra $75,000 in tax revenue from this hotel that we helped get here, and then 95 of that is gonna go outside of the city, that's something we need to look at as a city council, because
Well, somehow we have to provide service for that building too.
No, and I get that,
So-
and that's what I'm saying, it's a
You
longer
guys-
conversation.
It's a lot longer conversation and we're getting off track. So if anybody else has another comment that they need to put on the record, raise your hand. Otherwise, I am closing the public hearing. Yes,
I'm on
please.
that list.
You are?
I just wanted to say that I really consider the fire district as a partner to us, and I really feel like this is becoming an us against them type of thing, and as a city council member is new, I just want to give you guys my personal promise as a city council member that what I'd like to work through this, so we all can
Appreciate it.
support each other. That's really, what you guys do is fundamental to the community, and that's been that way for hundreds of years, so. That, I don't see that changing, and I really want you to know that we as city council members, I mean, personally as a city council member, would support finding some kind of way to work through this.
Scott, you wanna-
So I'm not developer. And first of all, Steve Scott, Twin Towers, 7401 Washoe Court, Tualatin. And before I even start, fire and life safety is imperative. And we can't live without it, and we need it. It doesn't, and I want to say also before I start, I will bet that this group that gets together and with Elaine, you will find out you will get your money.
Yeah.
I will bet you money. But again, that's another time, another place, and I don't wanna, I'm not here to debate that or resolve it, I'm just here to give another point. I think you're worth that. Well, I'll tell you this, I need you to be vibrant and here and protect those buildings, but and if you're not, then it's a failure for all of us, and that's real. So, like I said, I'm Steve Scott, I represent the developer here, and about 2 years ago, to what Commissioner McGuire said, I had the difficult job of actually having a conversation with our owner, because there was a verbatim quote from this city that said, when is Bill Stoller gonna get off his rear end and start developing this property?
I don't think we said we were in.
It's on the record, so I'm trying to be a little PC here, okay, that's okay, but it was pretty blatant, and the fact of the matter is that the city wants some level of development. When people look at a city that is well-planned, I will, in the state of Oregon at least, I'll bet you that an urban renewal district is somewhere in that. And that's an important point to make, because what it is it's a tool to get this job done. And it takes care of infrastructure that we all need. What we're doing, we're moving quick. I mean, we own all or part of every side of Pioneer Courthouse Square. And Bill said, get it all done, so we're doing it. So we're moving forward on that. Now, you could sit here and think that we're here for self-interest right now, but the reality is, by the time we get done, or mostly done, this isn't even established except for that initial $1 million. And it doesn't even necessarily benefit us outside of the infrastructure, which is so critical. So this is not a play that is all about us and trying to advocate that's going to benefit us as a developer. Instead, what we think is this is critical for this town. If this town is going to have meaningful evolution that it really wants. Now, you've already made some critical changes here. You brought in Uncle Dave here. You've adopted the Dayton Forward Plan, which I think was 2012. It's support, and you've done the design overlay. You've done the survey, you've asked the people what they want. You're following that. And it all supports the comprehensive plan. So people want some sort of change and some sort of evolution. We need to support the infrastructure that supports that plan. And if we don't vote in a renewal district of some sort, it's gonna fall on the taxpayers. I no longer live in Multnomah County, thank God. And if you wanna see a city that doesn't work, go live there. Because what it is it's bonds and levies. And that's who is paying for it, the taxpayers. And I've heard everyone here talk about how great the tax base is. Go to Multnomah County. I couldn't sell my house because of the tax base. That sucks. I'll tell you that right now. So you can put that on the. So what this does, if we vote this in, it's gonna upgrade our basic infrastructure capacity, including water, sewer, storm, water. It's gonna beautify this city 100% and make those buildings stable. I mean, right now, we're in the middle of the Harris Stuckey Bank of Dayton. We had a wall that was completely separating and falling apart. That was in your city. It was separating. We can't have that in this city. If you do not have somebody fixing and beautifying this, it falls apart. It's a 130-year-old building. And then we're gonna have beautiful sidewalks, city lights, things that we can be proud of. And then ultimately, which was just made right here, more business will come and it will increase property values, and it's gonna increase this tax base, not individual taxpayers, increase the taxpayers, which is gonna fix this gap that we have. And I'm sorry, I haven't done this as many times as you have, but I think that's an accurate statement. It's not hyperbole. So, this town has been ambitious since the day that Joel Palmer walked down these streets. We vied for the county seat by naming that the courthouse square. We had an opera house, for goodness sakes, directly behind us on the next corner. It's time for this city to shine the way it's meant to shine, and let's invest in it the way we want to. And the way we can do it, this is a tool, this is a benefit that we need to vote in on August 5th. And we need to spend the time, and it's difficult, but we need to have that committee and talk through it and look at the numbers and see how it'll work.
Gotta work for everyone.
Because it's gotta work for everybody. And we're never gonna have all the money. We all know that. But right now, we'll finish the Harris Stuckey Bank of Dayton building by the end of the year. We're in concept design, not for a motel, but what I think will be the best destination hotel in the state of Oregon. Not in the valley, in the state of Oregon. And we're in master planning right now for all our available properties. As we speak. I sit in 3 meetings a week on these things going through. There's a lot to be proud of for this city and a lot we're doing And what I hope is when we're done, that they come in droves. Everyone here is proud. So please consider this and take the time to really see if this works well, because it will pay off for every citizen in Dayton. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to close the public hearing at 7:40. We're gonna take a little break.
Are we done?
With this, yes.
Okay.
Other than that. And then,
And I can give you.
The long game. That's our way.
Thank you.
Thank you for this.
Okay, very
Thank you
good.
for the presentation.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Got some nice.
Yeah. Shelley has.
Yes, right. Whenever I drink kombucha, I don't know what it is, like. Well, yeah, but I also know from there are some other options. To be completely honest.
I think we do need to.
Well, yes, that would be built on to have that part of it. Where do I work? I work for courthouse. I'm extremely relaxed, probably too relaxed.
Really?
Only you heard me, I'm very relaxed.
Oh, funny. All right.
I hate panels that they needed.
Yeah. that's what I was-
You got Don't even worry. Okay, it is 7:44. We're gonna come back to the regular meeting. What we did not do when we swapped things around was, somebody make a motion to accept the minutes as they were read. So I could get a motion.
And to, approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
All right, I have a motion from, Councilman McGuire and a second from, help me say the last name again.
Councilman Over.
Over.
Yeah, because remember
Councilman
over.
Over.
Just leave it.
Over,
Yeah,
over.
Councilman Over.
It'll probably be like for another 3 weeks or something. Anyways, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, so our second, third, whatever number item is the cost of living adjustment. I will go ahead and have Cindy take over that discussion.
Yes, okay, so I had some incorrect information when I prepared the staff report that I just found out today. So I'm going to change my recommendation from 4% to 3% for the cost of living adjustment for the staff.
Saves us. All right, excellent. Does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns? Yes, sir.
Just to be clear, yeah, that, the 3% is what was in the budget statement that we looked at and we used to approve the budget, so I think it was just.
Yeah.
It wasn't, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, somehow it got 5%, but it was actually 3%, that's the number we have been working with and what we have budgeted to,
Yes,
so, yeah.
exactly. All right, well, hoo-hoo, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve a 3% cost of living adjustment for city staff effective July 1st, 2024.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilor Mackin and a second from Councilor McGuire. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, any opposed? All right, motion passes. Our next item on the agenda is the hiring of a library assistant discussion.
Yes, so this position was originally offered during a staff meeting to Vicki Duran, who's a retiree from the city. And then budget numbers didn't work for it. But now that I'm not in the library director position, there is money available there since my salary is not being paid currently. And also I'm, my salary is not the same as Rochelle's as well, so we do have a little savings there.
So, right on.
So, but as interim, I cannot hire or fire any staff members without city council approval, so I wanted to ask if you would all be amenable to the hiring of the library assistant for 15 hours per week, starting in August.
I move to approve the appointment of Vicki Durant as office specialist 1 at step 1 on this salary scale for 15 hours per week, effective August 19th, 2024. This would be for library assistant.
I'd like to have a little bit more discussion before
Yes,
we
sir.
call for a motion.
No, that's fine.
So do we have,
We don't, it
can we
can just
can
sit
we
there.
table it?
Yeah, it can sit there while we're discussing.
I have a couple concerns about this, number one. Even though we aren't currently backfilling Cindy's position and we're quote unquote saving that, all of her time and the money that was paying for it is actually spread over multiple departments. So it's not just her salary.
That's true, it's 25%.
Right. So at the same time, we hired Jensen Strategies, correct?
Yes.
Which was the most expensive of the 3 recruitment agencies. With the and that's because they're the best also, but
Yes.
with the understanding that we knew that during this process, hopefully, we were going to be, Rochelle was going to be here and we'd be having, hopefully somebody from city staff moving and we wouldn't be paying 2 salaries. So that went into the calculus. And I know that because I was council president at the time and working with the then mayor and Rochelle on that. In our current budget, as it stands, we have a contingency plan for this entire city of $46,000 for the entire year. That is nowhere near adequate. So this is nothing against Ms. Duran, and I understand that hopefully if I look at the process correctly, we can hopefully have somebody in place by October for a new city manager. I just don't think that spending that money for this is the right thing for us to do. I think that money needs to either go and be helped to pay for the Jensen strategies and or be put into the budget, into that contingency fund, because $46,000 is contingency for the city. It's just nowhere near it.
Question, did we already pay Jensen? How much? I mean,
We pay as we're billed for
right,
the, yeah, we didn't pay up front.
okay.
But it was never budgeted for because we didn't know Rochelle was leaving. That's my point.
And I will say that, you know, if we don't hire Vicky, which is fine, you know, the library would continue to only have afternoon hours because that's the only time we have staff available. So as long as everyone's okay with that.
Anybody else have any comments, questions, concerns? Right, we can move on and revisit it at another date if we need to. Let's move on to the recruitment schedule for our city manager.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir.
we tabled it, but we have to take it back up and we can.
It can, not from my understanding, it can sit there and actually fall off. You don't have to do anything.
Well, what?
Because if we don't take action on it, it's nothing.
Oh, okay, so
It
we
just goes
just,
away.
so we just don't, we don't have a second.
No.
Perfect.
All right, thank you. And if I could get you to state your name and address for the record.
Happy to. Amelia Wallace, Jensen Strategies, 1867, Southwest 14th, Portland, Oregon. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you so much for having me here tonight. I've had the pleasure to speak with most of you, but it's always much nicer to get to meet everybody in person. So to get started, as many of you know, my name is Amelia Wallace. I'm a senior associate with Jensen Strategies. I will be serving as the project manager for this recruitment, and I'm honored for the opportunity to work with your council on this important decision. I've been an associate with the firm for 4 years, and I was actually just counting. This is the 15th city I've had the opportunity to work with over my time with Jensen, not counting repeats. And I just want to say that, you know, these city manager processes are truly, of the diverse work that my firm does, one of my favorite parts. These processes represent a time where a community is going through a pivotal change and truly has to come together to work together, understand what's needed for that change, and move forward. So to that end, that's why I'm here tonight, to help us do that. So you'll find in your packets a scheduled document. It looks a little lonely without all the other context that you all have heard about throughout this time. But what that schedule represents is truly a comprehensive process to lead your council through a decision process. So each of those stages represents a critical action point and decision point that the council will have to take. If you've already taken a look and have conflicts, don't panic yet. That is what we're here to talk about. The first question that I have, though, is did you bring your planner? Because that's what we're going to be attempting amazing to do tonight, is to finalize that schedule. So before we get into that, I do want to just provide a brief bit of context about what we're deciding. So because as many of you know, this is one of the most, if not the most important decision that a council can make over its tenure. You're selecting not only the person who will lead your city organization and staff, but they'll be the person you rely on to implement your policy direction, help you act effectively in your role, and most importantly, help your city meet its legal responsibilities and community needs. So our role in this process is to help you run this process smoothly and effectively. That means making sure it stays legal, making sure you have the information you need to make strategic decisions. And to do that, we need a roadmap. So that's not only to know what actions will be taking place for our own operations, for your staff, for you, but also to set a transparent roadmap that both candidates, potential candidates can follow, and the community. So our goal tonight is just to make sure that we get as close to having a solid schedule that we can move forward with, or
direction for how we need to adjust it. It's gonna be essential to have as robust participation from all members of council at each stage to make sure you have the opportunity to weigh in, right? To really get your feet into this process. So with that, I'd like to just briefly walk through the full schedule to just kind of hit the highlights. I do want to share, this is the same information that was presented to you in our original proposal, but we've all slept since then. So just to hit the high notes. And I don't know, would it be possible to pull the schedule up from the packet? Sorry, I should have queued that earlier. Thank you, Rasia. While that is coming online, so as many of you know, over the last weeks, we've been working with not only members of council, but staff as well as the public to gather information to develop the profile. That profile represents a comprehensive depiction of the policies and project priorities that the next city manager will be expected to uphold. This is a critical document for a number of reasons. This not only is a shared representation of what all those perspectives and needs are from across the stakeholders in your organization, but also is a key legal piece in the process. So as we have collected all this information, we just closed the survey last Friday from the public. We are drafting that profile this week, and then it is up to the next step in that process is for council to review that profile in detail and make sure it really speaks to what you see as critical in the next city manager, with an alignment of all the other feedback that we've heard, of course. So you'll notice that that brings us to our first date we'll be discussing tonight, which is July 23rd. That'll be a work session where we attempt to get all of the information and edits we need so your council feels confident and comfortable adopting it at the very next council meeting, which will be August 5th. Typically by that point, we have the council sewn up, so it's just on the consent agenda, no major action needed on August 5th. That's not why it's not highlighted. But from there, we proceed into position advertisement. Now, that's where that critical legal piece comes in, which is we cannot proceed into advertising the position until the profile has been adopted by council. That allows you to meet an executive session and is important on a number of levels. Yes, Councilor.
July 23rd is a Tuesday. Is there a reason we didn't do it on a Monday? Which would normally be our second meeting for the month. That was our proposed schedule that we understood would work, but that's what we're here tonight to discuss, and we do actually potentially have some flexibility on Monday. So do you mind if we circle back on that? Yeah, please. Yeah, thank you.
Perfect.
You told me to bring my planner.
You did. You're so ready. You guys are doing great. I'm loving it. Position advertisement, we advertise nationally for 4 weeks. We have a number of places that we recruit, but most importantly, we get on the phones. We have a robust network that we work with to bring you candidates over those weeks. From there, we move into application screening and Zoom interviews, which are conducted by members of our team who are almost exclusively retired public administrators with a depth of city and county management experience. I actually meant to mention 2 of those folks at the beginning of this introduction. That'll be Dave Waffle and Sia Lindstrom. You'll be seeing them throughout this process. They're a tremendous asset we have on our team. From there, we'll move to our next key decision point for council, which is taking the information of those applicants that we have interviewed and presented for you and deciding who to select as finalists. You'll see that is selected for Monday, September 23rd. From there, we really get all systems firing. We move into our full steam preparation for the finals week, which is currently scheduled for Tuesday, October 8th through the 11th. Nope, council is not required for every single piece of that, but that is a key week we hope you can hold available. And so, yeah, during that time, we will be working diligently to prepare a robust vetting process for your candidates that come to visit your town during that week in October. So, with that, I'd like to see if there are any quick clarifying questions and then just go date by date with the council to see any amendments that need to be made and take any direction that's needed. Mary, do I have permission to lead a conversation with you?
Yeah, absolutely, please.
Thank you, thank you. All right, so, council, first of all, just to give me a sense of where we're going in this conversation, could I do a round of thumbs just in terms of, oh, actually, I could probably make most of these dates work, or thumbs down, I know that there are some that I'm gonna have to talk about. All right, big thumbs down to start. Okay, well, yeah, okay, got something to work with. That's fair, that's so fair. All right, so starting with the top, with the July 23rd, we had originally planned that for 6:30. Can I get a quick show of thumbs, who all can make that?
July 23rd.
Yes.
Oh, I thought we were going to 6:30.
Oh, sorry, July 23rd at 6:30.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
What about the 22nd?
the 22nd is a possibility for us. Does that work for everybody?
We usually hold the first and third Mondays, because that's
That's our normal
schedule. So
Great.
most of us have those kind of like, we don't plan stuff.
third one.
Well, thank you, and we try to take that into account, so that is super helpful for us to know.
And
Thank
we'll
you.
move to Tuesday if Monday's a holiday, just, for like Labor
That's
Day.
the only time.
It's the only time.
The
we usually do
caveat.
Tuesdays.
Great,
Yeah.
okay, quick holiday check.
And we try to plan downrange for that.
Fantastic. Okay, so we will plan on the work session the 22nd. Just as a side note, you'll be receiving the profile in advance of the 22nd, so our review will be discussing it that day. The next date will be the next most important date will be the Monday, September 23rd. Quick show of thumbs. Big thumbs down, all right. And I will preview, UL might be our favorite, we do have other clients, so I am a little bit more constrained in our other availability that time, but I'm sure we can find a resolution.
I apologize, which was the next one? Monday's the 5th?
Monday, September 23rd.
It's okay for me.
I know we have one thumbs down, so if that one. Okay, so let's just do a quick check. Is there any potential for Tuesday, the 24th, or Wednesday, the 25th?
Those are further down.
Okay, so we're choosing the original as best for you, Council President, okay. And is there any chance that you might be able to zoom into session on this? Because I am understanding correctly, all the rest of council is available for the 23rd, okay.
Yes, I just leave the very next morning,
Okay.
dark 30
Okay,
for a trip, so that's why it's probably not good.
okay, so the others are much
that
worse,
isn't too
but
late.
if you,
Yeah. I can
you
probably-
might be able to,
Yes,
okay, that would be excellent. So that will be the stage at which the council is receiving the presentations of all of the candidates and selecting the finalists to move forward. So if it's all possible for you to be there, that would be ideal.
make her happen.
All right. So now here's the big kahuna. So the week of October 8th, I'm just gonna walk through briefly. I didn't dive into as much detail of that as I planned to yet. So Tuesday, October 8th, there are only voluntary council participation requests. That would be for the community reception in the evening, typically from 6 to 7:30. Great. And then the next day, Wednesday, October 9th, don't worry about it. We don't need you at all on Wednesday, October 9th. You will have 3 panels working together to review your candidates and provide some information for council's review. The next date that you'll need is Thursday, October 10th. Uh-oh.
I'm out of the country that entire week.
Okay, when are you coming back? When do you leave?
We leave on the 6th and we come back on the 13th.
Okay,
We will be in Italy.
great. And I'm guessing there's not a potential for any Zoom sessions during that time. Okay. The rest of council, are you available that week?
Thursday, October 10th, somewhere between 1 and 2, I'll be down at the fire hall giving blood.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'm available.
Okay, well, I think we could probably plan a break in there if
These-
needed.
Sorry, these are during the day or these in the evening?
We typically plan them during the day, but I will confess, we've been asked for the first time to do an evening session, so we're in the process of
I
working that
cannot
out.
make it fit middle of the day unless I rearrange my schedule with it.
Okay,
And
So-
sorry, follow up on that, how long do we typically, are we asking like a 4-hour chunk, a 6-hour chunk, a 2-hour chunk?
Great question. So typically, if we have 4 candidates, it will be at least a full day. We encourage you to take the full day because we'll do an hour-and-a-half interview for each candidate, and then we would like to feed you in the middle and give you some breaks and an opportunity to debrief at the end. So
And that would be the October 20th.
the 10th, the Thursday. Yes, Counselor.
Is there any potential to move all of this up to the week starting September 30th, like move everything forward 1 week, or is that? You have a conflict with another client or something, or?
So at this point, we could only move the schedule back. So we could move the schedule potentially back a week or 2, and I'd like to look to city staff to make sure that doesn't cause any other issues. But the only things that I want to clarify is, that is an option to move back a week or 2. We'll want to revisit the other dates just to make sure that we're not pushing too far out from them. But the only thing I want to caution is that with the schedule as it stands right now, if for whatever reason the council does not find a successful candidate at the end of the first round of recruitment, there will be time to go out and re-advertise a second time within this calendar year with the current schedule. So that's the only consideration that I want to make for council. So I think there's still an active question whether or not the Thursday, October 10th and the Friday, October 11th. Those are both daytime sessions that we ask of council. As I
They're
mentioned,
both equally the same amount of time, full days.
so typically the deliberations is shorter. We usually go from 9 to about lunchtime.
Oh, I can tell you that's not gonna happen already.
Okay. So Mary, it'd be helpful to understand what would be, at least as a starting point, possible for your schedule during the workdays.
Well, I mean, it's out far enough, I could probably wing it. I'll
Okay.
have to go back and make sure nobody's on vacation, but, yeah, I could probably wing it those 2 days.
Okay,
I just have to clear it.
we do understand.
Is there any opportunity to go to week 14? So 1 week, 7 days from that date?
The week, 1 week later,
Yeah.
October 14th.
that is a possibility if that works for the council.
Obviously, I'd like to at least be in the country.
Yeah, I mean, if we
Yeah.
can do that, that's fine for me.
Yes, it's our 30th anniversary weekend, and
Oh.
Josh has already booked vacation, he already did it, because he has to bid it a year in advance.
Oh,
We
yeah,
got
no,
hotels and everything already booked.
yeah, I mean, if we can move it, that would be good.
I'm okay with that. We have to.
Okay,
Check with
I
the-
apologize, yeah.
Not at all,
so
not at all.
If we could move that to the 14th.
Okay. I'm just gonna triple check my notes here that I have been diligently given and just make sure I'm going. But I believe we should be able to make that work, and we do appreciate council's efforts to make yourselves available. This is a big ask and a huge decision, so we recognize both things.
Cindy, does staff have any issues? Because I guess you guys have a Columbus Day off, correct? Indigenous
We do.
People Day?
And we also
Monday
would
the
like to
14th.
point out that there are 2 city councilors that are not present tonight that will need to be a part of this conversation as well.
Too bad, so sad.
But
So-
I guess my question was it gonna be an issue with staff having Monday off to have the staff and community receptions on
October
Tuesday, the
14th.
15th?
Yeah, we're off October 14th.
So
Yeah, but if we did it on the 15th, the next day, that would be okay for staff, right?
You guys would be able to do whatever you needed to do by Friday and have to be ready to hit the deck plates running on Tuesday morning?
Well, I will say, we do a majority of the preparation. We rely on staff for many, many things during that week, but we do try to take the majority of that work on our team.
So is that okay with you guys? The 15th, 16th?
Right.
15th through the 18th, yeah, that window. And what we can do is council, with that preliminary direction, we can circle back with the other members of council as well as double check any other dates. All right.
I wanna make sure it's super clear. So, that week, no matter what day it is, our ask is a maybe on the first day,
Mhm.
a not necessary on the second day,
Mhm.
a absolute if you can, unless you're having a baby on the 10th, on the third day.
Yeah.
And then the next day is like,
Have-
please.
So the next day, I apologize, I probably skipped a few steps here. So yeah, Thursday, that's the council interviews, right? That's the full hour and a half with each candidate. If we have fewer candidates, shorter day. The next day, that is your deliberation. So at that time, we will download, we call that the download. We will share all the information we've gleaned from the process, both from the panel interviews, the community input, the background checks, the reference checks. And then we proceed into a facilitated dialogue where you reach your final decision. So that's where it gets squishy on when it ends, because it just depends on the discussion.
Gotcha.
And do those dates need to be right next door to each other necessarily, or could we have one day and then skip a day and then?
Good question. Typically, we do recommend that. One of the key things that will change if you start adding days in the middle, unless it's arranged pretty thoughtfully, is adding extra days of time that you're asking candidates to be here. And we typically, cities cover the expenses of candidates, so that can drive up the cost of your recruitment. But
Sorry, it's always money.
I can save up my house.
So council, at this time, it's sounding like we do need to have some further conversation about the schedule, but what I'm hearing is that at least the week of the 15th through 18th, provisionally right now, is looking like a possibility for the members of council present.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. As of right now, we will plan to proceed with the work session on Monday, the 22nd. And I will be working with staff to identify any other potential conflicts and make sure that this schedule is solidified and able to be a guiding point for the rest of the process forward. Just two last reminders, and I will give the council an opportunity to ask any questions. As I mentioned, you'll be getting the candidate profile for your review, but the only other thing I wanted to remind at this time is that the word's out that you're looking for a new city manager. So I want to say, first of all, I'm already having some good conversations, which is very exciting. But second of all, you may have candidates and other people reaching out to you to understand more about your city and your process. So all I want to remind is that you loop any of those conversations back to us. That also is going to apply to any sensitive recruitment materials that we're dealing with throughout this process. So at this time, there may or may not be internal candidates. There may or may not be people you know applying for this position. So I just encourage you to think thoughtfully about how you move through this process, and please lean on our team. That's what we're here for, to help you run an effective process, keep it legal, and hopefully take some work off you. So
I only have one question.
Yes,
Can you
please.
share, were you responsible, or was Jensen Strategies involved in Rochelle's leaving?
No, I thankfully can say that.
No, we were gonna kick you right out of here.
That was the clock.
Yeah, we're still working on our cloning machine. We do get that request, and they're like, oh, just bring us another one, just like it. Okay. Any other questions, council? Well, thank
so
you.
much.
Thanks for coming.
Appreciate it.
Next. Oh, council comments and concerns. We'll start with you, Mr.
Over.
Over.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, over.
I was just gonna revisit the table measure that we were doing on
That's not all encompassing.
Hmm?
Whatever's in the thing there.
well, I moved that we table the discussion regarding the library position.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Second.
Now we actually have action on it.
Yeah. Well, it has to be, we have to.
We don't technically,
That's what it says here.
on that it does, but when I
That's what it
looked up, I found out that that's
Okay.
not necessarily the case.
Another way of doing it is just not have anybody, if nobody seconds the motion, it's dead.
It just goes away, and you can always bring it back to the agenda at another time.
I just think we should discuss it further first.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, I mean, if you want to discuss it, we can definitely bring it back again. Not tonight, but.
Okay.
Okay,
Let's see. I don't have any major concerns other than what's centered around the urban renewal district. I'm gonna voice it. I believe it is a net positive. for the entire area. I think we need to figure out a way to where the people who advocate for themselves need to be involved in to reap the benefits of the plan. I'm not saying everybody needs to get the benefits of the plan, but those who advocate for themselves need to reap the benefits of that. I think that's fair, that's just, and I don't know about you guys, but my house on fire, I want the guys in the funny hats there. Right? So that's a part of it. Jim, I totally understand your side of it, of like, how much money does it take to service the other areas and what is it, and how does that lie within the cities?
Well, I'm not taking sides, it's just, I don't want us making a decision, there was a lot of anecdotes thrown out, we won't be able to do this, we were counting on this money, blah, 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 and it's like, we just need to understand that it's like, that thing's going in because of what we did.
Well-
And so it's like, I know they're counting on the money, but it's like, this is gonna be like a push me, pull you, it's gonna be a conversation.
That money wouldn't even be there though.
Right, and I just don't want us making decisions on anecdotes. I
Yes.
wanna see data, I wanna see numbers, I wanna see a spreadsheet.
Absolutely.
Not just, if you guys do this, it screws us. Which is basically, no disrespect to the guys who came up and talked, but that's basically what they were saying. If you guys do this, all of our plans are torpedoed. And, we owe our time and energy to, the city, and part of that is the fire district, and we want those guys in the funny hats. But we just can't do it off of, if you go through with this, we're screwed. I wanna see data. I
Yeah,
wanna see numbers.
well, and the first couple of years is really not gonna make a difference.
Before we get anywhere too much further, I should not have brought that up because I thought I was gonna be, anyway. So we're going to, that is my only concern that I have to voice. Some other people have talked about how did the city of Dayton offer a cooling center during the hot days or not. There's been an activity on that on the.
Covered, taken care of.
Good enough, okay.
Yes, there was.
Didn't we invite people to go to the library?
Yes,
Yeah.
we had a cooling center, we had misters, and we had all that, and it was advertised all over Kingdom Come. But
It didn't make that much.
because some people like to just do stuff on the, Facebook or wherever, without actual information, it makes everybody else go nuts, so.
Well, our homeowners associations are coming to do the growth package.
That concludes my comments and concerns.
You're up, Mr. Ryder.
I just want to say thank you for everybody to be willing to entertain pushing that a week. If it was a different kind of trip, like for work or something, I could probably get around it, but leaving the country is a little different, and it's a milestone for us. The September 3rd meeting, I will not be able to be here. And I will not be able to Zoom. Not on this, no, it's not, it has nothing to do with the recruitment. Our standing first meeting in September, the Tuesday, September 3rd, because Monday's the holiday, I won't be here for that, so.
All right.
Oh, I think I'm gonna pass tonight, except for one thing. This upcoming city county dinner. We're gonna be hearing about Beverly Cleary history. And I was thinking of contacting the city. To offer to do a tribute to Beverly Cleary by going ahead and dressing up in my clown costume. Would anybody on the council be embarrassed to be around a clown at a city county dinner? For those who don't know, I'm Miss Beverly Bookmark, named for Beverly Cleary. So I want to help, besides a clown and a city councilor. How many people can say that? I mean.
Probably most of the city council.
Portland Rose Festival clown. I'm not just, there's a little bit of officialness to me here, so. I'm gonna say, RSVP yes for, 2 people. And just wanna let you know, I might just be dressing up in my finest. But I think that'll do it for tonight.
I was gonna bring this up, but you did. So if you are going to attend the city county dinner, please let Rocio know by the August 1st, my dad. You can just say I'm going, I'll be there. But I might bring a guest, we'll see.
Okay. Just so I know.
And then we have the Old Timers Weekend, and I wanted to find out if we are going to entertain a float for the city.
And I think that in conversation, the staff thought they were just like stretched right to the edge at the moment. We have got stuff, we got the posters are being updated, right, or the banners, is that true, or?
The banners at the,
We have the entrance banners up to say,
right,
got,
yeah, we had to put a little vinyl over those because they had the wrong parade information, but
right,
Yeah.
little change.
yeah.
Um,
We do have a trailer and we could probably get some supplies if council wants to make a float themselves for the parade. But I don't think that we have city staff.
Maybe we can send out a little survey, find out who's
Yeah.
interested in it and who's not, because if not a lot of people are interested in it, I don't wanna waste time. I'm certainly not gonna come here and do it by myself, so.
It's a lot of work.
are we able to monitor parade interest so far?
Yes,
We are,
I am.
okay, good.
Are you, or I thought Beth was in charge of
Beth
the,
is in charge.
but you're keeping track too?
Yeah, I want, whenever I set up a form on our website, I leave myself on there to get emails, at least in the beginning,
Okay,
just to make sure that it's working, so I just haven't taken myself off yet.
okay.
And there is
So-
interest or there's not interest?
They've had, I think 5 people register so far, which is pretty good for it only being open for a couple of days at this point.
Right.
So, yeah,
And then the next thing I wanted to bring up was National Night Out. Please make every damn effort to bring your funds to this thing.
Okay, Madam Mayor, is there anything I can do to help? I was planning on being there, just doing my thing anyway, but if I can help
Well,
the city.
yes, we're cooking,
Yeah,
and I fully expect
I'll be.
every freaking one of you bringing your funds.
Yeah.
And it'll be said-
And then Katie and I are tired of being on the show.
Yeah,
At any rate,
I took a lot of notes too from last year, so we'll make sure the barbecue isn't in the food line where everybody goes through the smoke.
Yeah.
Oh.
the cooking's
And maybe-
outside, the food line's inside this year.
That's good, that's good.
Right,
that
okay.
makes me happy.
Yeah.
How big of a barbecue do y'all need for that?
You have one, don't
We have one, but it's normal size, why, you have something?
We have one like tow behind the truck. You guys
Really?
want- you want
Oh,
that?
yeah.
Yes.
What'd you say?
That'd be
a
great.
wood-fired one. right?
No, this was gas. But we also have a
okay.
charcoal one.
Okay, no, that's great.
Okay, perfect. I will make sure.
Yeah, it would help greatly.
All
Okay,
right.
yeah, it's 4 by 8 with 2 layers, so.
Big deal.
Yeah.
We get some trouble.
Volunteer, right?
Guys in your box.
Oh, yeah, well, if it's there, I'm there.
Yeah, the guy from the
So-
honey
I
house
am
is
a
there.
closet pyramid. It's the only closet I'm still in, but I'm a closet pyramid.
I think every guy is. And then the last thing I wanted to remind everybody about, elections are coming. Those of you whose terms are ending, oh, good girl. If we could just
Yeah,
remind
22nd
other
of
counselors who are not here to determine
22nd of
what
August.
they're doing ASAP.
22nd of August.
So it's not that far.
Yep, it's a Thursday.
So just. a
Let me know if you need a packet and I can provide that.
I need a packet. You want me to come down and pick, or you have one?
No, I have one here.
Oh, great, that's good.
That helps.
Prepared.
Do I need to make an appointment to bring it back, or are you available, or?
I can will be available.
Okay, cool. It'll be morning.
All right, while she's doing that, we'll move on to informational reports, and we'll do the tourism and economic development.
So given the length of things and so forth, I don't want to, take up a ton of time. I put this together to give you a summary of basically our tourism and economic development initiatives accomplished or in the process from 23-24. Because it's always good, I think, to remind yourselves of what you've done and accomplished. So I'm just gonna, if you can review it at your leisure. But at least it gives you an idea of some of the things we've moved forward on and made happen, and some things that we're gonna be making happen in the future. As far as my own personal report, I thought I'd just highlight a few things that, you know, we're working on right now with economic development and tourism. The first on the is the urban renewal plan adoption. One of the things to note is that because we're going through this, we'll initiate some sort of committee. The mayor, I'll work with her and everybody else here and get that moving, because
Yes, please.
we've got a month really basically to get it done, or we have to extend again the information. So I'll put that as number one on my agenda. We are finalizing the Village Dayton purchase agreement. So it's with their attorney, and then it goes to our attorney, and then once that happens, it'll go for signature, and then we have till December 31st to consummate the agreement. We are working on the small city allotment grant for the East Side overlay project. So we're looking at a number of streets to overlay on the other side, actually starting on 3rd and Alder and then down. That grant is for, that grant's for $250,000. And so we're working on putting that together. I'm working with Denny, our engineer, to do that. We are in the midst of a grant we received for a transportation system plan update. That is with our city planner, Kurt Fisher. That's going to kick off this week. Actually, we're having a meeting here for that. And that is, again, a grant provided by the state for us to look at updating our transportation plan, which was brought to my attention last Friday when we had a meeting. That's good timing, because with some of these projects in the works, transportation in the plan for that is going to be important. So the more they know, or we know about that, the better we can plan for it. We also had a meeting on what was called CPACE, and I gave you guys a copy of a little bit what CPACE financing is for green energy and so forth for new construction. So I'm going to meet with the state here later this week and get to know more about it so that I can give a professional presentation, or they can to you. City management recruitment, I'm now the point person for that, because Cindy obviously may be a candidate for that position. So while she's doing that, I have to take the role. So I'll be continuing to work with Amelia on that to push it forward. We'll be working in, I'll be working on project management of the bandstand renovation and the community center upper floor hardware replacement. Both those projects right now are being targeted for October, because that's kind of the downtime. So I've already passed it by SHPO, and I'm going to be meeting with the historics group as well here in the city, just to make sure everything's fine. It's a replica of what we have, okay? But it's in dire need of having that done. And then the last thing will be next council meeting on the 5th. We'll be making a marketing presentation at our next council meeting to update the council on marketing initiatives that we're moving forward with, and just to explain those in a nutshell is what we're doing. And that's the economic development projects that are being worked on right now.
Anybody have any questions for Dave? All right, city manager's report.
Okay, so we've gone over a lot of what I had in there, but I just wanted to point out a couple of things. I included something from the lawyers about the grants pass decision. And so far, the only press release I've seen from any of the cities in Yamhill County came from Newburgh, and it was almost immediately after that decision came down. I am going to send our code to the lawyers just to review to make sure that we're in compliance. And then the other thing was we were able to purchase cybersecurity insurance for the city. So that protects us in the event of a ransomware attack or anything like that. So it was, you know, it makes, right now, Chuck at AlexaNet told us that the number 3 target for hackers worldwide are water treatment plants.
Yeah.
And our system at the water treatment plant is limping along right now. So there could be vulnerabilities there, and it just seemed like it made good, you know, fiscal sense to do that. So I just wanted to point out that we had been able to do that. And then, yeah, I think everything else is just standard things that you would see. The sheriff's report and the public works report.
Which the sheriff report was different this time.
It's formatted differently.
I have a question on the cyber attack insurance. Did we commit to more than a 1 year?
No, we did not.
Okay. I mean, there was a discount and a potential discount for getting extended time.
Yeah, we can, not knowing what our budget situation is going to be year to year, it's difficult to commit to multi-year things, so, but we have room to negotiate.
All right. Well,
I have a question for you. Are you going to be available for the LOC conference in October?
I'm going to try. It really depends on how much time I have to take off.
I'd like to go, but I'm a little worried about the location, all those hills and things. I would kind of need somebody to go with me, really.
Yeah, I don't know yet. I will have to kind of see how that's gonna play out. Anyways, okay, we are done. If I can get a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We're adjourned at 8:30.